Good evening to everyone. And I'm so happy to start this Barefoot Industry Days meeting, online meeting, with Kate Byers and Linn Waite from Early Day Films. And
Hello.
I'm
Linn. I'm Kate.
this first meeting will be dedicated to them. They have a production in UK, in Bristol, and they are in Lago virtually with a film screened in New Science Competition that is Art Crack the Wind by Mark Jankin, that some of you may know for Bait, and that was 2019 or 2018 big success. It was premiered in Berlinale Forum, I think. Yeah. And I would like to start by welcoming you and to ask you if you can tell us something about your early day films. So when was the date of birth of early day films? How do you met? And what was your idea and purpose for early day film when you started?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for having us.
Yeah,
and it's lovely to be part of the festival, a great festival. And yes, we work regionally in Bristol, which has always been our base, and we met outside of the industry. Actually, we met through friends and
climbing.
Yeah. And Linn moved to Bristol, and it was during the time that she first moved to Bristol, where she was staying in our house while she renovated a house, that the idea for early day films was born, literally around our kitchen table.
We had that idea, but Kate and I were also at the time, and Bristol's got a really vibrant short film culture. And so Kate and I were working on lots of different, but also sometimes the same short films. And we just found that outside of that friendship and within the work environment in film, it was very simpatico. And we just had very similar ideas about what we wanted to do. We worked together, and people started asking us if we would work and produce their films. And I think one of the things with the birth of early day films was that we wanted to work on original story, and we wanted to do our own projects. So I think there was kind of that choice between whether you're a producer for hire or whether you're a producer that's getting your own projects up and going.
That's seeking story, that's developing story, that's working with writers and directors from the seeds of ideas and working on their ideas and looking at how you can take story forward and how you can do that effectively when you're not living in London was really interesting to us. And like Linn said, the short film culture in Bristol at the time was very vibrant. Digital shorts had just started to become a thing, and I was moving from having been an actor into development and story development. And Linn had a really kind of practical background that was born from her climbing days, and
did event management and working with teams and things like that.
Yeah, so together we just kind of covered so many areas of what was needed in what people were asking for in a producer, which was the person that could help carry the torch from a very early idea when nobody really understood what it was that you were doing and what it was that you were forming and how you wanted it to be, right the way through to delivery.
Okay, and can you explain a bit your progressed experience also before forming and founding early day films? Because I was very curious about how you and how your personal experience before founding early day films also mixed together in this particular production company.
I think Yeah, I mean, Kate, you've been in the business all your life. I mean, as an actor, I've come to it a bit later.
You sound ancient.
She sounds really old. She's not that old. She's not.
I mean, I was an actor, so I was on set from, you know, sort of pretty young, you know, and I did a lot of theatre work, and I did a lot of work working with directors who liked to evolve their work through improvisation and story develop in you know, sort of in a very kind of grassroots way. So that was like breathing to me, you know, sort of developing story in that way to perform. And when I left London and moved to Bristol at a time in my life where I had young family, it was quite hard to maintain the thing that you needed to maintain as an actor in going up to London, auditioning, and I just felt that to be really creative, I needed to change direction. And what I loved about being a creative performer and a creative worker was genesis, and the genesis of ideas, and talking about ideas, and spending time particularly with writers who had original story and how they could be developed. And it was at a time in the UK where there was money starting to come out of London and into the regions through what was then the Film Council. So it was possible to get involved in development for film. And film really interested me because I'd only ever experienced it in front of the camera. And yet I was really familiar with sets and how they worked, and was always trying to figure out what it was a producer did, you know, sort of what directors did before they got to set, before they got to the point when they were rehearsing with an actor. I was very aware as an actor, you're often late on and first off, and that I started to really crave to understand more about the whole process, you know, the whole team, you know, what it was that everybody did and how they did it. So that was part of my journey into crossing the line, if you like,
coming to the dark side.
Coming to the dark side, yeah. and that was how I met Mark. Actually, was on a short film scheme when I was hired as a script developer amongst a group of people who were helping develop and take through writer directors to shorts. But yeah, you know, sort of how sets work. I really just wanted to start to know more than what you know when you're an actor.
And then mine's quite different. I think when I was younger, if I'd had the opportunity to go into theatre or stage management or something like that, I would. But I just didn't. I never. And I know lots of people starting in business. I didn't have any contacts. I didn't know anybody. And my direction was a little bit different for a while. And I ended up doing leading expeditions, like outdoor activities and climbing, and which is kind of how we met, kind of climbing. And that led to doing event management, but also doing an awful lot of work in leadership and team development. So organizing events and facilitating events where you bring teams together and look at teams. So, you know, Kate is absolutely wildly passionate about story, and I just love organizing stuff. And getting people together and bringing it together. And if somebody says, I need this to happen, it's like, okay, how are we going to do that? And it was only when I came to Bristol really that I had that opportunity to go and explore film, which was something I'd always wanted to do, but without that knowledge of how to get there. And short film was the gateway drug, basically, to get me through to doing features. And it was starting to work in all sorts of capacities on short films. And I think in the end, Kate and I did a lot together, and then we ended up co-producing a film called September, which was by a director called Esther May Campbell. And in 2009, that was nominated and lucky enough to take home the BAFTA for short film. So I think that kind of that gave us the impetus to go, yeah, actually, do you know what? We work really well together as a team. And that's when Early Day really took off.
Yeah. So we wanted to set up Early Day Films for films, you know, so we were really clear that we didn't think our skill set lay particularly in developing TV or, you know, sort of, or having a sidebar business like a lot of small production companies have, where they do various other bits. We decided that we'd just go full out and work for film. So that began a very long period of getting a slate together. We're still working on getting a slate together. I think, sort of as an independent company, it's always changing. Projects come, projects go, projects have a moment, never quite get there, go into a bottom drawer, sort of, and you get very used to that flow of having lots of different things that grab your imagination and grab your attention. And what was the best fun about doing all of this out of short film was that not only were we just meeting incredible people who were making films and delivering everything from incredible comedy in shorts through to really powerful dramas and beginning to play with form, whether it was mixing animation with live action or becoming more experimental. We just got to see what was possible. And that fed into a more traditional approach of trying to develop screenplays that you could go down the route where you raise a bit of development money and then you attach whoever's going to join you for the journey, and then you raise your finance, and then you go forward to getting things made.
And I was very curious about what you said about Bristol. And so basically, your experience with the film industry started when you moved to Bristol. So not in London, but in Bristol. So that is the contrary of what you commonly could think. And I was very curious also, which were the conditions that in Bristol helped so much the short film industry that you described, and which were the aspect that you fall in love also with the film and in Bristol. So I was very curious about this opposition between London and Bristol, and which kind of cultural milieu there was there when you found early day films.
Yeah,
I'm going to go. Years ago, I kind of studied history. I'm going to go historical a bit first, because Bristol, there is, you know this with all the, Largo has its own culture and its own personality, and all cities and towns do. And I think Bristol, growing up as a port city, although London was our main port in the UK, Bristol was a port city, and therefore Bristol and Bristolians were used to dealing with the rest of the world directly. There's always been this Bristol, we're off in the West, we're cut off, we'll just do what we want. And there is that element in Bristol of Bristol just getting on and doing it. And I think there's also a big creative community in Bristol, and that mixture of a kind of personality of the city, where the city really likes to just say, right, okay, well, we'll do it our way, combined with a whole bunch of creative people thrown in the mix, means that there's some really interesting relationships that can be had.
Yeah, I think so. And also as well, sort of back in sort of 2005 through to 2010, Encounters, it still is our main festival, but it was really central to everything that was happening in Bristol at the time. So, sort of the Watershed, which is our big independent cinema, and
that's
then
also really important.
And then the smaller places that are equally influential, like the Cube. Everyone had this focus on Encounters, which was this brilliant short film festival right in the heart of the city, and it had great strands within it, sort of for local work and for supporting local filmmakers. And so it felt like there was this hub where people could meet and get things off the ground and do things. And I think it
was really exciting to be able to go and know that there would be specific screenings that were all about film that was local. And film that was from the Southwest. That's really exciting.
And so that kind of bred lots of little schemes that happened up, which I'm sure happen in other parts of the country, but obviously, sort of we perceive them from being in Bristol. So there was there was Depict, which was like a little 90-second film thing. There were various film challenges where people would go out and make and shoot a story in 24 hours. And
so it's been a big theatrical Super 8, but that's kind of more.
Yeah,
but there's also been a big theatrical tradition. We have Bristol Old Vic, which as a theatrical and the theatre school associated with it. So there's always been that creative drive, I think, and dramatic drive here.
Yeah, I mean, sort of it's not as famous for film schools, but sort of it's got the universities and the programs that they run as well have started over the last decade to really build and be prominent. But for me, sort of the heart of it all was Encounters, sort of and that live sense of being able to go and speak to filmmakers. We could see each other's work. We could, you could just sit and have a beer and just talk and talk and talk and talk about film. It's great.
So it was a film festival that was the spark for your the birth of your production company, and also your interest mainly in cinema. And I was also interested in your collaboration with Mark Jenkins, because Mark Jenkins is such a particular and very unique talent in the world of cinema. And I was very curious about your first touch with him and what you recognize in him, because it like now it's simple to know. It's Mark Jenkins. It's an established filmmaker. But I think that 10 years ago it was not like that. It was very hard to find why and how it will be Mark Jenkins in the 2021.
Yeah,
it starts with you.
Yeah, I met him first of all on a short film scheme for digital shorts, and and Mark's a beaut. You see and chat to him amongst a group of filmmakers, and he's just really he's a beaut. What can I say? You sit and you're drawn to the person as much as you are the filmmaker. And at that time he was doing a little film that had a really long name, and it was about a guy who was trying to turn out onto a busy road.
A man who needed a traffic light.
Yes, and that was the film, and it was so funny and at the same time really political about the nature of what was happening in his part of Cornwall and the influx of tourists each year that all came down this one busy road and into the county, and that if you were local and you were just trying to go about your day-to-day business, sort of between Easter and September, you were knackered if you were trying to turn in the wrong direction into the flow of traffic on this road during holiday season. And so what I loved about him as a filmmaker was that he had this lovely, sharp political eye to his world, to where he's from, where he lives, where he works, and saw everything with this really lovely humor that was just very connective. So yeah, sort of when we met and we got talking, he made me laugh a lot, and I was really interested in his work. And classically, we did not get to work together. Sort of I got partnered up. I was on the scheme as a script developer, and I went off and worked with 2 or 3 filmmakers, and Mark got to work with one of the other script developers. So we only ever really saw each other at the joint meetings, and then when we were doing the shows and tells of seeing each other's work. But we kept in touch, and then we went on our journey that led to September, and he was on a journey with a film called Midnight Drives. And at one point there was talk about whether we'd be able to produce that, but we'd just done September, and so we just weren't in a position to pick up a low budget project at that point. And we kept talking, we kept going, we'll find the right thing. And then we started to develop work with him, with a writer, Adrian Bailey, who wrote Hard Crack the Wind, on projects that we were developing with him that we thought, had a real synergy with Mark. Meanwhile, Mark was working on his stuff all the time, and so we had various things that we were moving forward or in a similar direction with lots of parallels. And during this period of time, Mark had this realization, which he describes much better than you or I can, about how he moved towards shooting film in this analog way that he's the master of, and hand processing film and what was possible.
He had some enforced time where he was kind of at home and spending a lot of time kind of thinking, and he was watching films and just thinking about the time that he was happiest making films. This is kind of what he says, and he realized that when he was younger and he was given a small film camera, he loved it, and he loved the physical nature of it. And I think it was during that period that we started working with or supporting him on some very small films called Dear Marianne or The Essential Cornishman, which was shot on film. They were kind of hand processed, and starting to look at how that worked. So it was really interesting that, there were these lots of little small films, and all the time we were, as a team, we were looking for a way to work together.
Yeah, and Mark had done this extraordinary film, Bronco's House, where he'd really built up all of the practices that he went on to use when we were making Bait, and that had evolved through the short films that we'd been working with him on. And so what became really exciting was the possibility of what would happen if Mark's shorts weren't programmed as part of experimental programs, which often did happen because he was working in this incredible hand processed way. And what would happen when you take the narrative that's in story and shoot films in the way that Mark did. And so Bronco's House was an exploration of that, and then Bait was the logical next step from that. And the Bait story had originally been a screenplay that I'd read right back in the day when I first met Mark, and we hadn't got to work together on a short. We then got put together on a program for a feature which was then called The Holiday Park, which went through lots of different incarnations with various different producers until we arrived, Mark, Linn and I, at that place where it seemed like
saying, if we're going to make a film that's hand processed,
a feature film,
film,
so,
as you do,
so one that's a little bit longer than Bronco's House, and therefore classifying as a feature. What's the story?
Yeah.
You want to do? What would work? And we all felt that Bait was it.
Okay, so it's very interesting because it's challenging, I think, also to understand someone's gaze. And I was curious about your next step or upcoming projects you have. What are you working on?
It's Early Day Films.
Yeah.
Well, Mark's just shot and is now in edit on Ennis Men with Denzel Monk down in Cornwall, and they shot that this year under COVID, and it's so weird being in Bristol and all of that's happening down in Cornwall, and we meanwhile have been developing our slate, and as a regional company we've always had this really pragmatic approach that it's about finding people and working with people that are emerging, breaking through, listening to the stories that people want to tell, working with the writers that we like to work with, and developing their story ideas, and really having a range of projects across a range of budgets and a range of different genres. So we felt that our regional nature meant that we had to be in a position where we could be flexible and nimble, and when an opportunity came up we could go with it. So the slate now, we've got projects with writer-directors that we're working on. We've got projects with young writers who are crossing over from theatre. We've got projects with our regular writer, Adrian Bailey, and one of those we're about, hopefully, to go on, and that's a project that we've got cast, we've got a director on board, and we're finishing bringing the finance together. We've got our sales agent, we've got everything in the right order this time, unlike Baite, where we just
made it and
and then figured out what to do after we'd done it. So yeah, that's us. A range of lots of things.
That's the next one, but like Kate says, there is a range, and we have aspiration for the company as well in terms of scale. So we've got a big period drama that we're looking to work with as well, and potentially we're just getting into a co-production with another producer, which is a really nice thing to do, what they bring from the company and what we bring, and that's been really fun having those conversations.
And we really like working with other producers,
just like with Denzel, Hard Crack the Wind,
and we're working with another regional producer on some horror projects that's aimed at keeping regional teams together, because what often happens is that lots of time and energy goes into developing people when they're in their short film careers, and then how producers and writers and directors can stay together with the pressures of everything that's demanded when you need to raise bigger amounts of money is something that really interests us. And so we've got this collaboration with another producer where we're concentrating on regionally made horror, and like Linn says, sort of we keep thinking we'll never do another short, and then
somebody comes to us with a really interesting idea,
and you go, oh, that's a great short. Let's do that as well.
Or it's a good place to start your relationship. And I think there's also something that shorts are. They're a genre in their own. There is doing a good short is really challenging, and so they are fun.
Yeah, and what happens when is something that interests us, sort of, and Mark was really brilliant with this, sort of, and so Hard Crack the Wind came about when because on Baite, Mark, and on Ennis Men, Mark does so much, the writing, the directing, the operating, the editing, and as a producer, you're always worried, what if something happens to this person? Because so much is dependent on their well-being and their ability to get up and do what they need to do. And sort of, and Mark was talking about what would happen if he didn't write something, or if he didn't operate the camera. And in a way, that's what Hard Crack the Wind was. And Linn and I were able to work with Denzel, who was the associate producer on Baite, in a position where we could build up a really interesting set of relationships through the local university in Cornwall, which both Mark and Denzel
eight trainees. We had 8 trainees on set, which was fantastic. Yeah.
So you get the chance to do things in a different way, or explore new ways to doing things in short film that you can then apply to your feature film work. That was long and rambling. I hope it made some sense.
No, it makes completely sense. And I have a last question about what you said about short films, because you started in a cultural environment with that you said you fall in love also with short films, and I was curious about in your career, what were the challenges and the stimulus and also the good part and the bad part of the work of working in shorts, and what you realize today, and what do you think it's the place of short film today?
I really like shorts that are shorts. I'm very nervous when people say that they want to make shorts as a proof of concept for a feature. I think it's a form in and of itself.
Because there's a story form that fits the time frame.
Yeah, exactly. Something is right as a short, whether it's a long short or a short, it's a short, and you know that from discussing it from conception. So that's one of my passions about shorts, is that they're this wonderful form in and of themselves.
I love the place that you can play with shorts as well. So for instance, Mark was playing with that hand processed and what you did with that. And then also we're working with a young filmmaker at the moment where we're playing with, I mean, we're not the first people to do it, but for him and for us, playing with live action and animation. Because it suits the story and how does it work with the story. So, that would be a real challenge to kind of go and do that first time on a first feature or something. But in the short, it's a really good place to explore it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's also about the relationships, because when you're working in short film, it's never about the money, because there is never any money. And so it is about talent and how people emerge into their cinematic voice, how people find the things that really interest them. Working with Esther May Campbell through her shorts was just delightful. The first one I worked with her on was a little film called Charlie Harry's Wondrous Nothing. It was really short, but it had everything in it that then became the essence of her longer short, September. So you get to see people's progression.
I love watching that. I love watching filmmakers' journeys, and you can start to see their individual voice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And going back to Mark, sort of, one of the things I just love about Waite is that it makes me laugh. It's an incredibly beautiful and powerful film, but it's also very funny about the foibles of being human, and sort of a lead character who comes up against himself more often than not. And sort of Mark just has the eye and the ear for just capturing beautifully a very particular British humour that is delightful. And it's just wonderful seeing that vein go through all of his work.
And also with Waite, people had said when he cut it, there was almost an element of horror to it. And then, with Hard Crack the Wind, it was a chance for him to fully explore that and say, right, okay, well, we've got a ghost story here. We can really look at how we edit it for the tension and the chill and the thrill.
Well, and shoot it. So you've got chills and the spills of crash zooms and playing with blood and sort of all of those things that are really good fun.
Yeah, I want to do a film with more blood.
Kate, Linn, thank you so much for being today with us. It was very, very interesting and very, very also you gave us a depth look into your work and Bristol and Mark work. So thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. And I hope to host you soon in Lago, physically.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, maybe next year. Thank you so much. I remember to all the one that are listening to us that Barefoot Industry Days will be during Lago, and Lago is taking place from 23rd of July until 1st of August. You can find more information on lff2021.com. And thank you for being with us. Bye, Kate. Bye, Linn. See you soon.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.